Today, I'm going to review WUCHANG Fallen Feathers for you. I was invited to test the game and I already played the game for 2 weeks until now. And today I'm going to give you an overview on the good things of the game, the bad things of the game, what to expect from WUCHANG, and basically if the game is for you or if you should potentially just skip the game. This video is not paid, so I am allowed to say whatever I want to say and I will do so. And no worries, to get this out of the way, I will only show gameplay from the first act of the game to not spoil you in any way, so no worries, I'm not going to spoil any major things of the game. Please keep in mind that on my channel I review games from my personal perspective, so I talk about what I as a person like about the game, what I dislike about the game. I focus on talking about the game, how it felt to me as a person. And as always, if you like the video, I would be extremely happy about a like and also potentially maybe a sub, because we are almost at 1000 subs and that allows me to monetize the videos and maybe earn some little money with it and improve my quality and stuff like that. And if you want to further discuss the game, feel free to also join my Discord server. We speak about all the games that I talk about, and you can also find some people to play with and stuff like that, so jump in. But let's talk about the game, WUCHANG Fallen Feathers. WUCHANG Fallen Feathers is a dark action-packed Soulslike set in the late Ming dynasty of ancient China. It blends in historical fantasy with supernatural horror, and I can confirm that compared to games like Sekiro or especially Black Myth Wukong, the game has a very dark theme with lots of fantasy horror elements to it. Not just the bosses, but also the game world in general, filled with bloody areas, attacking corpses and more. I mean, what the hell is that? Like, I guess that's me after just 4 hours of sleep, basically. Without going into too much detail about the story, you play as WUCHANG, a woman that is infected with a disease called the feathering. This disease came up after a demon attacked the civilization and slowly turned everyone who's infected into monsters, basically. So it slowly makes people go insane and also give them supernatural powers, and ultimately they turn into feathered monsters. And as the main character WUCHANG, you try to find a cure for your disease, and you fight against monsters that already turned, and you also fight against humans that think you are a monster. Because of course, just like in real life, they beat the shit out of you because you're sick. And as already mentioned, the game is a Soulslike. Yes. What the fuck is wrong with my English today? I need a warm-up. 1 second.
We speak with our lips, warm them up.
And as already mentioned, the game is a Souls-like, so you feel that through Souls-like typical elements like losing and reclaiming experience if you die, which is totally fun. I love this mechanic. And bonfires in the form of shrines, which are save points and where you refill your health pots, and the way the story is told, and in general the gameplay elements and the bosses and the poise break mechanics and stuff like that. So in its core, it's a Souls-like. WUCHANG Fallen Feathers is clearly inspired by games like Sekiro, Dark Souls, Black Myth Wukong, or even Bloodborne, but I think it's not fair to compare the game to any one specific game. Instead, it feels like they took inspiration from all the games and they basically took the best elements from different Souls-like games and put them inside their own game. But they also introduce new elements, and I'm going to talk about that because it's a good thing, but it also comes with some bad things. The combat in this game is very action heavy. You could already see that in the trailers, and it's not as slow as in Dark Souls, for example. It is quicker, more flashy, and combines different elements, which are normal attacks, 3 weapon skills, weapon swap abilities, and weapon swaps in general, and weapon coatings, and also magic to use in the battle. With over 40 different spells, and you can equip 4 of them at the same time. Unfortunately, the game has no jumping and no jump attacks. Why? Why no jump attacks? I don't get it. Why do games not have jump attacks? I need that. I need it. It is important to note that even though there is a skill progression in the game, the majority of active skills that you use depend on the weapons that you equip. So each of the weapons that you equip have 2 active skills bound to them, and there are 25 different weapons that you can get in the game. However, if you invest more skill points into a certain weapon tree, you can unlock some additional abilities that you can equip instead of those that are on the weapon actively, and you can change the weapon abilities abilities, but the most important active abilities come from the weapons themselves. But if you happen to get a weapon where you like the look of it and you like the base stats, but you don't like the abilities, you can unlock additional abilities. Not too many, but a few, and you can put them on the weapon instead. Beyond that, the game has a gear system. I don't want to go into too much detail, but you can equip gear pieces with different stats and advantages and accessories, and there are some other elements to the game that also are part of the gear system. And typical to Souls-like games, the story is mostly told through items and NPCs in the game world. So you mostly get the story told through the game world, and that means if you skip the dialogues and you don't like reading in general, you will have a tough time to understand the story. So if you are like me, you are probably going to miss the majority of the story because I don't like reading. I'm just a lazy person. I like enjoying cutscenes and that's it. But some people like it, some don't. The game has about 50 hours of playtime, depending on how good you are at the game, of course, and how quickly you understand the bosses and the mechanics, and also how much time you spend on finding all the optional items in the game. However, the game has multiple endings, so if you want to see all of them and you don't go to YouTube, you have a reason to replay the game. One of the biggest questions that you may ask is, how difficult is the game actually? And if you ask me, I would say the game isn't really hard. It is certainly one of the easier Souls-like games that I have played so far, at least until the end game. Of course, the end game is more difficult, makes sense. And surprisingly, the bosses, given that you take the time to look at their mechanics and learn them and adjust to it, are not the hardest part of the game. They were actually pretty easy compared to the sections in between the bosses, because I felt like the sections were way more frustrating. Not insanely hard, but they have some frustration to it, and I'm going to talk about that later. And lastly, the game offers some unique mechanics that are a combination of interesting and also kind of frustrating at the same time. One of which is the feathering system. There are different things in the game, like perfect dodges, that give you stacks for your feathering system. And these stacks are necessary to enhance the weapon skills, because without the feather stacks, the weapon skills are kind of useless, and perform combo weapon swaps or even use magic in fight. However, this comes with a major downside, if not the biggest downside in the game, and I'm going to talk about that in the bad section. So keep watching. Beyond that, there is a temper system, which basically allows you to put coatings on your weapons, like a fire coating, for example. It's a pretty cool system. No downside for me. I just love it. It's a cool system. And lastly, we have the inner demon system. And oh boy, basically every time you die, your inner demon level rises. That means your damage grows, but also the damage that you receive from enemies grows as well. And once you hit the max threshold, which happens fairly quickly, a demon version of yourself with weapons and skills and magic spawns at the location where you died. And you have to fight it. And if you win, you get your XP back. And if you lose, you will lose all the XP. And then your inner demon level basically goes back to 0. And you can even exchange items at shrines to raise your inner demon level, and you get items for it. So if you want to push that to the max level manually, you can do that. I think that system is innovative and it's cool, but it's also extremely frustrating, and I'm going to tell you why in the bad section, so keep watching. But first of all, let's cover the good things about the game, because there's a lot to say here. Starting with the graphics and the atmosphere and the sound design, everything is on a high level. The game looks and feels amazing. I don't have much to say here. They just did a great job. It's not on par with games like Black Myth Wukong, but it's pretty close to that. Like, it looks fantastic. There were concerns about the technical level because they didn't share the minimum requirements, but on a technical level, the game runs very smooth. I didn't have any technical issues, any bugs, any frame rate drops, and no issues in general, which is it's good. It's sad to say that in 2025, but it's a good thing about the game. Actually, I had over 165 constant FPS in a Souls-like, which I thought is impossible. Honestly, the 60 FPS of Elden Ring and of Sekiro just made these games so hard to enjoy for me. So From Software, take notes. Besides that, the combat if it works, it flows, which I'll talk about later. But it feels good, and the weapons are fun to use, and they are very unique. And overall, it has a solid foundation. Together with its graphical quality and the sound quality, it feels as good as it looks in the trailers. And each of the 25 weapons has a very unique playstyle because of these tailored skills that they have. So they feel very different, and that brings in some variety in combat, which is good. The next good thing is the level design. Even though I wouldn't say it has the best level design of any Souls-like game, because I've seen far better level design, so it's certainly not on like the Elden Ring level or Black Myth Wukong level, but it's also not bad. It's certainly more than enough for this game to be extremely fun, and just it's good. I would say it's above average. The maps are pretty linear with some optional paths to take if you want some extra loot, but other than that, they are pretty linear. The only thing that was a little annoying is due to its horror theme. I think that most areas were really dark and kind of monotonous, so I think they could have brought some more variety to the game, but it's okay. It's on a good level. What's also good is that there is not too much backtracking, because I hate backtracking. Some people like it. I hate it. I just want to keep progressing and not suddenly not knowing how to keep going on, and I have to go back to another area which I don't even know where to go. And the game also has some interesting and fun enemy types that have different mechanics, especially that dude just having the time of his life. WUCHANG Fallen Feathers actually doesn't have a map, and I hate it. I think maps are so important for me to not have FOMO that I miss anything, but luckily the game introduces some ways to show you the main path that you have to go. So I don't want to spoil you, so just look around the game, try to find hints on which of the paths is the main path. You will find them. I think they found some pretty cool ways to mark it. And beyond that, another way that they introduce during the game is the radar on the bottom right corner that helps you find NPCs that want to talk to you, and also the location of the next shrine, which I think is a cool system, and it helps exploration. And in general, I think that the devs made a good job to offer solutions for most of the downsides in the game. So one of them is the fact that, yes, you lose experience if you die to enemies, like in other Souls-like games, but most of the enemies drop items that you keep in your inventory and that you can use to gain experience. So even if you die and lose your base experience, you still have these items. So the time that you invest in the game and the enemies that you kill, it's not worth nothing if you die. The time is still respected. And I think that's a good thing because, you know, time is money, so who doesn't like money? So, and I also think that the game has a good sense of progression. I feel like the game is introducing new mechanics frequently, and the combat starts to feel more fluent once you invest some skill points in certain weapons, unlock new magic, and overall just progress the character. And I think that's good. It makes the combat more and more fun and fluent over time. And I really hate when a game completely overwhelms you with thousands of mechanics right from the start. So the game slowly introduces each mechanic, and that's a good thing. Overall, I could praise the game for way longer, but as you know me, I always reflect good and also bad things about games to help you decide if a game is for you or maybe not. So let's jump into the bad things about the game. Because even though the game is pretty solid, it has some issues that I'd like to address. But please keep in mind that these issues are subjective from my personal perspective. Like I have a personal preference, and everything I say is just my personal opinion. So you can put the forks away. Like if you have a different opinion, that's absolut in Ordnung. That's no problem. Kein Ding. That said, let's start off with my biggest issue, which is the core combat mechanic of the game that allows you to gather feathering charges, which you need for everything in the game, like skills, weapon swaps, magic. So you need these feathering stats, and the game doesn't have a natural block or parry system, at least without certain skills. So instead it mainly expects you to do perfect dodges in order to get stacks for the feathering system. Doesn't sound too bad, right? I mean, perfect dodges are not a problem, right? Wrong. Because in WUCHANG Fallen Feathers, a perfect dodge is only a perfect dodge if the enemy actually hits you in the dodge. So if you are like me and you naturally just decide to dodge away from the enemy or dodge to the side, well, nice waste of time. You're not going to get any feathering stacks, and that means you cannot use any moves. Even if you dodge the attack in the very last millisecond, it's still not a perfect dodge if you don't get hit by it. And that means you have to force yourself to actually dodge into the enemy instead of away or like to the side. And I think that's disgusting. I don't like it. And the ultimate result of this is the ridiculous fact that bosses are way easier than mini bosses, because bosses have AoE attacks and they mostly hit you in the dodge roll, while mini bosses mostly use poke attacks or small attacks, and it's hard to dodge them and also get hit. So these mini bosses can become really disgusting, and some areas of the game have multiple mini bosses from one shrine to the other. So for example, if you look at my dodges in this clip, this is no stack, this is also no stack. So now you might say, just Memplex, I have seen parries and blocks in the trailer. What are you talking about? Yes, technically, there are some weapons in the game and some skills that you unlock for some weapons in the game that have certain parry or block abilities. However, with most of these abilities, you still take reduced damage, so you don't nullify it. And of course, the damage is pretty high on bosses. Or you have to actually invest feathering stacks in order for them to function properly. So again, requires you to do these perfect dodge rolls in order to use the parry effectively. Now, the good thing is that you have this skill system in the game where you can invest passive skill points. And if you do that on some weapons, you gain passive skills that give you feathering stacks on certain interactions. For example, the longsword that gives you feathering stacks on every second hit. The problem behind that is the balancing between the weapons, because I feel like some weapons make it a lot easier. Some weapons make it a lot harder to get feathering sticks. For example, the longsword just requires you to do 2 hits, which are pretty fast, while the axe requires you to make 4 hits, and they take pretty long. So, because as you know, bosses nowadays, they don't give you the time to do a long 4-hit combo to get a stack, so doesn't make any sense, but you get the point. So if you progress through the game and you unlock more passive abilities that allow you to get stacks a little easier, overall the game becomes more fun. But this whole dodge system and the missing passive skills at the beginning of the game made like the whole early game feel very weird and kind of unnecessary hard, which made me almost quit the game after 30 minutes. I just felt like it feels so clunky and just so bad. I didn't want to keep playing until I realized that if I invest skill points, everything becomes so much better. So basically now I enjoy the game way more, but at the start of the game I felt like I was forced to play certain weapons and also pretty much forced to play aggressive, which some people would not like because they don't like playing aggressive. They like to be the passive defensive kind of player, but this is not how WUCHANG works. Maybe I just didn't get it. Maybe I was too stupid to find a good defensive way to play the game, but that's my experience. But maybe I'm also just stupid. And beyond that, weapon swaps in the game are very important to keep the DPS high, so in order to break the enemy bosses. So if you don't like weapon swaps, this is not going to be the game for you. I like weapon swaps, so it's not a problem for me, but I've heard some people that hate it, so might be an issue for you. Besides that, another topic that frustrated me personally were some level sections between bosses. Because one major problem is that the game is just throwing traps at your face. Like, it seems the developers really love these jump scares and unfair deaths from other Souls-like games, and they just completely smashed all of that in their game. For example, how about a tree that just suddenly kicks you in the face and throws you off a cliff? Isn't that fun? Or you just beat a mini-boss and you leave the cave and suddenly 2 enemies attack you with a grab mechanic from both sides and just grab you and stab you. It's fun. I don't know why this trend started. I would rather like difficult enemies to fight against instead of just walking slowly through the level because I have to expect a trap or anything like that around any corner. So I mean, one time I even got killed by a shrine, like the save points. I got killed by a save point. Like, what? The second major issue combined with that is that the sections between one shrine and another can be quite long. And they are filled with traps and mobs And I mean, this is nothing new to Souls-like games, and I've seen worse, like way worse. But now the inner demon system comes into play. Because as I told you, every time you die, your inner demon level rises. And if it's at max threshold, which happens quite quickly, a demon version of yourself spawns at the location where you died. And that demon can heal, can use skills, can use magic, and is pretty strong. Now imagine you have a very, very long section, and shortly before the next shrine there is a mini boss, or even two, and you die there and you hit the max threshold, so you have to walk this huge long section again until you reach the end boss, maybe with just one heal, and now you have to fight the mini boss and the demon version of yourself at the same time. And if you manage to kill them and get your experience back, you have to walk all the way back to the shrine to heal, because maybe there are some more enemies until the next shrine. And the last small issue that I have about the game is that you cannot jump, and actually your character dies in knee-high water, or maybe foot-high water. I mean, I can even see the ground of the water here, so why do I die? I'd rather just recommend like putting boxes or something else in front of this area so I can't fall down there. And I think that's just level limitations that feel kind of outdated. They could have made better design decisions. Not a huge thing, but it's just kind of outdated. But that's about everything that I can say about the game so far, which is why we directly jump into the conclusion. So overall, I think that I was very satisfied with WUCHANG Fallen Feathers. Is it the best Souls-like ever created? No. Is it a Souls-like worth its price and enjoyable? Absolutely, it's great. So the question is, should you get the game? If you like Souls games and you are looking for a game that isn't as hard as Sekiro, or you love aggressive playstyles and you are able to adjust to the mechanics of the game, especially the dodge roll mechanic, the perfect dodges, I recommend to get the game. Definitely. However, if you don't like long segments between save points, and especially unnecessary traps that kill you unexpectedly and maybe frustrate you, and you prefer a defensive playstyle and feel kind of turned off by what I've said about the dodge roll mechanic, and you hate weapon swapping, then you should maybe skip the game. So now I'm curious about what you think about the game so far. So by what you've seen so far, would you like to get the game? Will you check it out? And if you already played the game, how did you like it? So what's your main pros? What's your main cons? Can you confirm what I've said? Do you have a different opinion? Please share your experience in the comment section below. I always love to discuss games, so I will answer all of the comments. But if you're into MMOs instead, maybe check out this video where I talk about my top 10 upcoming MMOs, so MMOs that we are probably going to play in 2025, 2026. Not those that just exist on paper, but those that might already come out. Maybe check out the video. It's a good one. And if not, I see you in the next video. Have a good one. Bye bye.